All right, so you got your new set of bands in the mail and you're looking at the package, you're opening it up, you're excited, and you see all these different numbers on the end of the bands. And you're wondering to yourself, how do I match these with weights? If you have that question, this video is for you. Hi, I'm Disciplined Dave, where I put the technique in your physique. Now, in this video today, I want to discuss a question that I get all the time and ones I have for myself. How do I match up the weights that I use in the gym with the band numbers that came in the box? So in this video, we're going to discuss those things. We're going to discuss how you match up those bands to weights. We all want to know that because a lot of people are now just getting used to this, or they're a beginner. Their gyms closed down, so they have to go to bands. Well, I'm gonna answer all those questions for you. I tried them all out to make it simple for you. Now, one of the biggest problems you're gonna find when using resistance bands is that you're gonna notice that they're gonna have a different linear stretch. This is how far you can stretch the band to maximum capacity. Also, when you're dealing with different linear stretches, is that the resistance level is gonna vary depending on how close you are to the band and how far away it is. Whether you're using a door stopper, whether you're putting it on the bottom of your feet and stretching your feet wide, this is all gonna vary that resistance. And on the other end, it's gonna be depending on the quality. Some bands are gonna have less linear stretch than other bands. And that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It may feel more resistance because it has less of a linear stretch. But at the same time, if it's not good quality, then it's gonna snap no matter what. So I've really used a lot of different bands, and I've noticed that you need to make sure you're looking at bands with really good quality. Some of the ones that I've been using lately that are very good quality are, for loop style bands, I like to use Rubberbanditz bands. They've been very strong for me. And when it comes to the tube style bands, the ones I've been using lately, Bob and Brad's bands, and these bands were developed by physical therapists, so they really took time to put in good quality. So those are my recommendations so far. If you want a full review of all the bands I've tried out so far, and I have new ones coming in, just leave a comment in the link below that you would like to see something like that, and I'll put up a review of bands that I'm currently using. Now, when it comes to matching up the weights with the band size, I'm gonna let you in on something. Don't pay attention to that. The reason why you don't wanna pay attention to that is because of that linear stretch that we talked about. The linear stretch is going to vary. Just because it says 25 pounds, it's not going to be a direct equivalent to what you use in the gym. So we need to make sure that we get that out of the window to begin with. They're a guide, but they're not the rule. And what you're going to find is that in some things you use at the gym, you may need to go lighter than you do. And in many exercises, you may want to go a bit heavier, but that should be a guide. Technique is going to be very important when you're using resistance bands and you're trying to match them up with weight, because resistance bands is going to give you the ability to do things with correct form with lighter weight. Now, if you're looking for that adjustment and you're trying to say, I still don't understand what bands I should use to match up the weight that I do at the gym, this is going to be a way that gives you a good guide. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's mostly gonna be about feel, but we're gonna talk about what that should feel like. What I want you to do is imagine the rep range that you're gonna do before you go ahead and use those bands, because that rep range is gonna be a guide to the amount of resistance that you're gonna need. So I like to do 3 sets of 15 to 20 with most exercises with bands. You wanna make sure you're going higher repetition on bands than you normally would going to the gym. And so with that said, you're gonna grab your bands and make sure that you're using proper form of whatever exercise you're doing. You have your rep range in mind, and that rep range, what that should feel like in the band. So if I'm doing 15 to 20, what you wanna do is you wanna start to struggle at 15 and then make it so that it's nearly impossible to do 20. That is the right resistance you wanna be at, where you can feel the right amount of weight that matches it up to the weights you use in the gym. Now, let's say you're doing a time where you're gonna go heavy. When I like to go heavy, I like to do between 4 to 6. Now, this is going to be something where you're gonna load up more resistance on the bands. Now, when I say 4 to 6 repetitions, what I'm thinking is when I get my bands, when I get to 4, it's gonna be very tough, and 6 is gonna be impossible. If I can make it to 6 in perfect form, keep in mind, perfect form. Now it's time for me to add some resistance. And when you add resistance with the bands, you want to start off with the lightest one because it's different than just stacking on plates with the weight there. That linear resistance, and depending on the exercise, a small band can make a huge difference. So make sure that you go light and work your way up. Now we're going to talk about loop bands versus tube bands. Loop bands, in most cases, are going to be stronger. It's one solid unit piece wrapped around in a circle. The bands are usually a bit thicker, and their linear stretch is normally short, but they can stretch out a little bit longer than you think. Now let's talk about tube bands. Tube bands are going to be the ones that come with handles, and you'll be able to attach handles to the bands, and you'll be able to do a lot more variety of exercises. So that's why I like tube bands and loop bands together. One's not better than the other, but I tend to go heavy. I'm using loop bands. If I'm going a little bit lighter, I'm going to use tube bands. But that's also not the whole rule. Depending on the exercise, I'm using tube style bands over loop style bands. So that's another variable that you want to consider. So I hope this video helps you in making your decision. And after you've made your decision, go ahead and check out the workouts that I put up. I have a whole series working all the body parts of the body for tube bands and loop bands. Go ahead and check those out and make sure you get a good workout now that you know how to match the weights to the bands.